Welcome to the January 27th, 2013 Troy City Council meeting. We are pleased this evening to have Reverend Susan Williams from St. Stephen's Episcopal Church with us this evening to give the invocation. If you would stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance afterwards. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's a pleasure to be here. Let us pray. Thank you, Almighty God, for the freedoms and responsibilities that we can enjoy with a system of elected government. Thank you for the men and women before us this evening who have the wisdom and the duty to carry out your will for this community of Troy. Thank you for a community that has both the desire and the means to care for all people. I ask that you would bless the deliberations of this council, give them wisdom, give them strength and courage to make decisions, and especially on this bitterly cold night, we ask your protection for all those who are taking care of our city in the streets and the homes and the businesses so that everyone might stay safe this evening. Bless this night with your presence and help us all to recognize the blessings you have given us here in Troy. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend. Troy City Council meeting is now called to order. The roll call, Ms. Bittner.
Mayor Slater?
Here.
Councilmember Campbell?
Here.
Councilmember Fleming?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick? Here. Councilmember Pennington?
Here.
Councilmember Teets?
Here. All present. Our first order of business is certificates of recognition and special presentations. C1 is the 2013 A Healthy Me is Drug-Free. And we're going to pass on this at this time and move to C2, which is a presentation for foreclosure prevention for residents presented by Rebecca Snee and introduced by Cindy Stewart, the Community Affairs Director. Good evening.
We don't have Rebecca, good evening, but today we have Madeline Jack. She's the housing counselor for Community Housing Network, and she's going to give a little talk about foreclosure prevention for our Troy residents.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. My name is Madeline Jacks. I'm a housing counselor with Community Housing Network, and I've been asked to speak a little bit about foreclosure and some of the foreclosure prevention services and resources that may be available to the residents of the city of Troy. These services are accessible by contacting the Housing Counseling Department at CHN, Community Housing Network, or your neighbor across the way. Our main office is located in Troy. However, we do have a Wayne County office, and we serve Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne County with our housing counseling services. Community Housing Network is a nonprofit organization, and we opened our doors in 2001. Since then, we have proven ourselves to be passionate advocates devoted to providing homes for those in need and access to resources to create sustainable communities. The Michigan State Housing Development Authority, that's MISHDA, awarded us Housing Counseling Agency of the Year in 2013. We currently have a team of 11, 6 of which are MISHDA certified housing counselors, myself included, and we're experienced in a wide range of housing needs such as homebuyer ed, pre-purchase prep with emphasis in financial education, foreclosure prevention and transitioning supports for exiting homeowners, and currently residents are experiencing 2 kinds of foreclosure in many communities, and that's typically mortgage and property tax foreclosure, and sometimes those can be occurring simultaneously. So with regard to mortgage foreclosure, Despite what you've heard, although things have been improving, mortgage foreclosure crisis is far from over. Foreclosures caused by bad loan products, lax underwriting, and underemployment have largely worked their way through the system, yet there's still thousands of southeastern Michigan homeowners who are at risk for mortgage foreclosure. So prior to the housing crisis, when a homeowner would experience a hardship such as illness or disabilities, job loss, or substantial income reduction, death of a spouse or contributing member of the household, or a divorce, they would have equity in their home if they've exhausted all of the resources, and then they could sell that home and move to a kind of an alternative housing situation, such as a rental property. But due to the decline in housing values, and with so many homeowners still underwater, the safety net of equity is not available. So short sales are an option, but they remain extremely complex, and it's a lengthy process to even get approved for that, and permanent loan modifications are difficult to obtain with an economic hardship. And it will likely be several years before home values have increased sufficiently across the board to remove the risk of foreclosure when life happens. And until then, all underwater homeowners are at risk. With regard to property tax foreclosure, this is kind of a new foreclosure crisis. Last year alone, 12,000 Oakland County residential properties with 2010 and prior year tax delinquencies were at risk of foreclosure. Consequently, we may be looking at a similar number this year. Often the problem affects elderly homeowners who own their home outright and don't have a mortgage, but they have fixed incomes. So once they fall behind on their taxes, they really don't have a way to catch up aside from making a payment arrangement with the county, which if anyone listening or watching, I'm not sure if this is going to be aired on television, has experienced a property tax default, I really encourage you to contact Oakland County. Their phone number is 248-858-0611. Get set up on a payment arrangement. That phone number is direct line to the county treasurer's office, so if you are experiencing that, getting set up on a payment arrangement should be your first step. So with regard to the kinds of resources that may be available, foreclosures are extremely detrimental to both residents and communities as we recover from the housing crisis. The last thing we need is more displaced homeowners and vacant properties. The good news is that there are many resources available to Oakland County residents facing both mortgage and property tax foreclosure. We are among a number of housing counseling agencies in the area, and I just wanted to give you kind of an idea of the other HUD and MSHDA certified counseling agencies, which include our agency, CHN, Oakland Community and Home Improvement Division, that's Oakland County's own housing counseling department, Lighthouse of Oakland County, JVS, Oakland Livingston Human Service Agency, that's OLSA, Green Path Solutions are just a few that serve residents in Oakland County. All these services are free. And counselors are highly trained professionals who will assess the homeowner's situation and help them create a plan which is going to meet their goals. Sometimes this may include a dignified exit from the home. We can help navigate through potential programs and services available, such as the HAMP program, the HEART program, and the Step Forward Michigan grant program, which I'll talk about right now. So in 2010, the state of Michigan received about $500 million in TARP funds to help homeowners who were in default, in some stage of default on their mortgages, to get caught up. Earlier in this year, the program guidelines were modified to help homeowners with property, or earlier in 2013, the program guidelines were modified to allow for property tax assistance. So up to $30,000 in assistance is available to eligible homeowners through 4 separate programs. The Loan Rescue Program is the most popular and successful, and assists eligible programs who have experienced an involuntary hardship with reinstatement of a primary or secondary mortgage default or property tax delinquency. Approved homeowners will receive a 0% interest, 5-year forgivable mortgage note from the state of Michigan, which is forgiven at a rate of 20% every year as long as the homeowner maintains the home as their primary residence and they don't change title. Any of the certified counseling agencies mentioned, including our agency, can help homeowners connect with the Step Forward Michigan program and submit applications for them. And homeowners can also do this of their own accord at www.stepforwardmichigan.org. And if homeowners have any questions or concerned about their ability to make their mortgage payments or they've entered the foreclosure process, we want them to contact Housing Counseling Agency as soon as possible. They can visit our website at www.communityhousingnetwork.org or give us a call at 248-824-7393. That's actually our intake specialist's number here in Oakland County. So if anyone has any questions, I can hope I can answer them.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Can you just again repeat communityhousingnetwork.org, right?
Yep, that's our website.
And what
Yes,
was
sir.
it,
248-824-7393. And my card is actually included in the packets there, so that'll be my direct line. Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
All right, thanks.
Thank you for what you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you
It's a
for...
great program.
Great.
And
Thank you so much.
The important thing is it's free. Thank you. Our next presentation will be introduced by Cindy Stewart, Community Affairs Director.
It's my pleasure. Julia Song is here to talk to you about Shenyang, but we're going to show a brief video first.
Do you want to speak a little before the video, or do you want to?
Sure.
Once you're done, if it's okay, I'm going to come down and I'd like to give something to you also.
I think the video will tell most of the facts. Shenyun, maybe you see a lot of this poster all over the...
Could you speak into, we're recording this, so if you could talk into
Sorry.
it.
Shenyun is the best classical Chinese dance music performance in the world. We invite them from New York to Detroit Opera House every year. This is going to be the 7th year they come back in February 6 through 9. 4 days, 5 shows. Actually, Shenyun has 3 equal-size companies this year, increasing to 4 equal-size companies to around the world. Last year, they visited 5 continents, more than 20 countries, over 300 shows. A lot of big cities sold out. In America, like D.C., New York, L.A., Phoenix, a lot of big cities sold out. Even this year, San Francisco are starting selling standing tickets per audience requirement. So enjoy the video. I will tell you more facts about it. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
My soul was very well fed tonight with the beauty of this performance. It just was breathtaking.
I was overwhelmed. It was beautiful, beautiful production. It was magnificent.
A dream world of perfection.
The male dancer, the male lead, whose name I do not know, is one of the most incredible dancers I have ever seen.
So inspiring. I think I may have found some new ideas for the next Avatar movie.
The double string violin was played. I had tears in my eyes. It was so exquisitely beautiful.
This is something not to be missed.
Shenyun Performing Arts is one of the most renowned Chinese performing arts companies in the world. Based in New York, its mission is to revive 5,000 years of divinely inspired culture. In ancient China, Poets and artists emphasized virtue, study, and meditation because they took to heart an ancient Chinese belief that to create true art, there must first be inner beauty and purity. Today, the artists of Shenyun follow in this noble tradition of inner cultivation, which helps to bring an extraordinary depth to their work. Classical Chinese dance, which is Shenyun's hallmark, is one of the most expressive and most demanding art forms in the world. Every year, Shenyun creates a whole new production with original dances, costumes, and music. Distinctive melodies of ancient Chinese instruments over Western orchestration, Shenyun brings together two of the greatest musical traditions the world has ever known. The intricate costumes and headpieces offer a glimpse into the richness and diversity of China's past. Skilled designers create large-scale digital backdrops that whisk the audience off to faraway lands. After countless hours of training and rehearsal, and after each piece has been crafted down to the minutest detail, Shenyun is ready to embark on a world tour. Everything comes together when the curtain rises. Everything comes together when Shenyun takes the stage.
Very nice. Did you want to speak some more, and then I would like to come down if I could?
Yes, and I think the video shows all the facts, unique facts about Shenyun already. I bring some facts based on the survey and the review from the audience. Shenyun gives you, what Shenyun can give you. Shenyun can give you a unique gift that lasts a lifetime. A lot of people call this a lifetime show. You watched at least once in your life because it's so unique. You've never seen such like a lot of unique effects in the show. Secondly, it's a VIP treatment for you. Nowadays, people are so busy for family, for work. It's really entertain you from all kind of fields. Like it's live orchestra. The music perfectly combines Western and Eastern music instruments, make a harmony sound, and also it's entertained by visual, the dynamic. Backdrop mixed with all these beautiful colors from the traditional costume, all handmade. And also it's a culture enlightenment, like a Troy, we share all this diversity of culture. This is the best way to learn about the Chinese authentic culture. That's why it gives you the taste of authentic Chinese culture. And then quality time for family. A lot of people don't have much time to spend with family. This can have you spend a quality time with them. Time travel back to 5,000 years of history. Also an inspiration for kids. It's broaden their mind. It's also a good course, beacon of hope. A lot of people, after watch this show, they say they feel hope, they feel uplifted. So you need to go find out why. Health, it's good for your health. In Asian China, the traditional character, music and the medicine is the same character. music was using as for treatment in ancient China. So a lot of people feel good energy from this show. So it's good for your health too. So thank you very much.
Thank you. If you wait there for a minute, I'd like to present something. All right, nice to see you again. You've covered much of what's in the proclamation in your presentation this evening. Hi, nice to see you again. But if I could, I'd just like to read part of the proclamation this evening and then make a presentation to you. Now, this proclamation is celebrating Shenyang Performing Arts Month of February 2014. So this is the month of celebration. Whereas a unique feature of Chinese civilization is that its history has been documented and passed down uninterrupted for 5,000 years, providing Shenyang Performing Arts with a vast source of creative material to revive its ancient culture and contemporary performing arts. And whereas in ancient China, artists emphasized virtue, study, and meditation because they took to heart an ancient Chinese belief that to create true art, there must be inner beauty and purity. And some of the other whereases in the proclamation are much of what we just saw here, but if I could just read a couple more paragraphs. Whereas Shenyang performances uplift humanity through messages of courage, virtue, and harmony as shared with audience through the creative and dynamic stage presentation. I think we saw some of that in the snippets, and I look forward to seeing it next month. I'm going to be there myself. But now, therefore, be it resolved that Detroit City Council recognizes and celebrates February 2014 as Shenyang Performing Arts Month, and be it further resolved that the City of Troy welcomes Shenyang Performing Arts to the Detroit Opera House and congratulates the cast and crew for their brilliant performances and depiction of true Chinese culture. This is presented on this 27th day of January 2014. It's signed by myself and all members of City Council. Congratulations, and I certainly look forward to the performance next month. Thank you so much. Okay, we go from performing arts with beautiful culture to snow presentation. Couldn't be better, but this is in addition to the agenda, and it's in the yellow sheet on the council table as C4. City Manager Kishnick thought it would be appropriate that we get an update on snow plowing and what Mother Nature has done to not only the city of Troy, but the region in the past month. My understanding is that we've had more snow this month than in the history of Michigan. And at the sub-zero temperatures, it's been a challenge, I know. But Tim and Kurt are here to make a presentation, bring us up to date, tell us where we've been, where we're going. So,
and I'm going to start off and give a little bit of history. I want to go back to 1970s. City of Troy was a fairly young community. Since that time, we've put on many, many miles of new infrastructure, roads of all kinds. Coming from a time when people drove cars that were more like tanks, weighed a lot, everybody had snow tires, transitioned to smaller, lighter cars where everybody's using all-weather tires that, even though they say all-weather, they're for rain, dry pavement, a little bit for snow, but they don't work like snow tires. We've come to the point 12 years ago where the city of Troy had discussions with Oakland County, and we took over all the Oakland County roads as far as snow and ice control maintenance. So we've done that for 11 years. This is our 12th season. A little history on that is the reason that the city took over that responsibility was to get some uniformity in snow operations. The county had higher responsibilities on I-75 and M59 and some of the other arterial roads, and so the city of Troy at this point, tries to make all of our city roads and the county major roads as uniform to people traveling through and for the residents as possible. We came through to a point 5 years ago where we came to very desperate financial times. We had to reduce, and no one wanted to do this, but we had to reduce our level of service, and it was devastating to the community. It was hard on the employees, it was hard on the residents, and it was hard on council. None of us wanted to see that, so we've come now a few years, and we've etched back some of those accolades that we used to get on a daily basis for snow and ice control to the point where we have new equipment and new technology and information technology to be able to get what we do and how we do out to the community. And I'm going to let Kurt then go through a few of these slides and kind of give you a little insight into what those things are.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. Kurt Bovensteep, Superintendent of Park, Streets, and Drains. I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are today. The graph, as you see, it kind of dictates that from November to January of this year, we're already well on our way to reaching above averages what we've seen in the past. This not only includes the snow accumulation, but the occurrences. So every time it snows, we count that as one occurrence. We've had a lot of snows that's lasted several days with little accumulation, which has made it pretty trying. This slide here shows what we do when we get called out for a snow event. We maintain a total of 409 miles worth of roadway in the city of Troy, 67 of those miles being county, which constitutes 9 routes for our drivers. 37 miles of the city major roads, which are 5 routes, and city industrial roads, 40 miles, which are 2 routes, equaling 16 routes for every time we get called out for a snow event. Now, mind you, there is currently only 15 employees in the streets division right now, so we pull from other departments, such as the Parks Department and the Water Department, continuously to ensure that we have enough employees to run a 24-hour operation like we are currently. Total local roads is 265 miles. It's a lot of lane miles there. This shows you the cost of the storm event that was the 12+ inches on January 6, 2014. We used to say that salt used to be our most cost in a storm. We've really refined our processes here in the last couple of years to tailor that cost of salt down through cooperative bidding and through decreasing our usage. For example, if you'll see on a storm that's continuous for 12 to 15 hours, we won't salt the entire run. We'll only salt the intersections, and we'll scrape to conserve on salt. Local roads in that event was just over $100,000. That's including contractors. That was for 25 pieces of City of Troy equipment and drivers, and 18 contractor pieces of equipment with operators. The major roads, which was done before the local roads in this event, cost approximately $73,000. So every time it snows, we're out, when the snow creates a hazard, we're out doing the majors and industrial roads with those 16 routes as I described. Local roads gets a little bit different. We have what's called our hills, intersections, and curves. When the driving conditions are tolerable for vehicles, for an average vehicle, but might not, to ensure safe stopping and going around curves and hills, we'll salt those without plowing and let the salt help for traction. When we do plow, it used to be a threshold of 4 inches, which isn't our current threshold. It's between 3 and 4, or what makes Troy safe in providing the best service. There's a lot of things that we take into account when we decide to go into plowing local roads. What the temperature is going to be like in the future. Are we predicting more snow? What type of snow it is, dry, wet. A lot of things go into consideration. For example, this most recent storm, before we've got the unpredicted 2 to 3 inches this morning, we actually were going to head into our local roads for the fact that it was going to be so cold. And in about a week, we were going to get close to above freezing temperatures during the day, but freezing temperatures at night, which can cause hazardous ruts. So we thought it'd be best to get that snow off the road now, even it didn't come close to our 4-inch threshold. Obviously, with the 2 to 3 inches we got this morning, we were estimating around 5 to 6 inches. Hard to measure with the blowing snow. Any questions?
Questions from council?
Okay.
I'll start. You know, you guys do a great job. We only get 1 or 2 complaints, I think, per snow event now, which is great. When you talked about what we had to do a couple years ago, we were getting hundreds a day. So I think that's a credit. But I think one of the things that I hear the most from residents is that subdivision gets done before my subdivision gets done, and how come you didn't do my street, and stuff like that. So maybe you could talk about the way you do it, and that you do alternate subdivisions, and there is priority given to some subs over other subs. Maybe if you could just talk about that a little bit. I know it's all on the webpage, but it never hurts to talk about it. I don't.
Love to do that. We have, in particular, 4 sections that are in the northwest part of Troy. And for those who maybe have never been through there other than traveling up Coolidge or Adams or across Square Lake or across South Boulevard, there's a little bit of variation. But if you go into some of those subs, there's streets in there that are not only very hilly, but on curves themselves. So those 4 sections being and having the most diverse landscape, we go up there and we plow those every snowstorm first. It's a safety issue. Has nothing to do about who lives there or, you know, any of those situations, which we always get accused of being unfair to one or the other. That's why those calls come in. After we do those 4 sections, then we have 3 clusters of square miles that we have put together, and that was done about 12 to 13 years ago, where we would rotate through the city. Prior to that, we used to start on the west side and move to the east, and start on the east side and move to the west, and try to start on the north and move to the south. And what happened was people never saw in the middle where they actually got to be first in a storm. And so we tried to rotate into 3 smaller groups and be able to get to places sooner. Had an example the other day where a gentleman emailed me and he says, "I'm never first." He happens to live in section 18. That's over near Adams and Coolidge, between Long Lake and Waddles. His situation is he was looking across at his neighbors across Coolidge, and they were first the first time. His section was second. They were second. He was third. So 2 out of the 3 cycles, they were first, but on the 3rd cycle, when he was first, they were last. it just didn't seem fair to him. It gave the impression that they were always getting service first. But in fact, they each, over the 3 different storms, were first once, second once, and third once. That is kind of the way we have to try to explain things and show the residents, that we do have a system that seems to be a little fairer than our old system. Now, looking back and how those groups were picked, I'm not sure because I wasn't part of that, but Kurt and I are going to look at those types of things this off-season during the summertime when we're patching the roads that are blowing apart this winter, and look and see if we can brainstorm and get maybe a little bit more logical system in place. People still have to be first, second, and third, beginning to end, but we do have a system, and it may not appear always to be fair, but it's a cycle.
I know that, and each subdivision basically is given a number, or a square is given a number, and you can find those numbers on the website today. Where you live, what number you are, then you can, it's all on the website. People can go to and find out where they are in the cycle, who will be first, second, and third, and then the next time they will be alternating with the others, correct?
In the future, Kurt is currently working with the IT department to, in the future, we'll have a better system to show where we're at and where we finished and how we're moving forward as a instant look at the website. It'll be continually updated, and him and Alex from our IT department are on the verge of putting that out, but there's a few things that we have to tweak.
Any questions now? Councilwoman Huderick?
And maybe we're going to address this separately, but with the snow comes the potholes in between the storms. I know because we've gotten correspondence from you, the work that you do, and I think these meetings are a great communication tool for that. The challenge for meeting those potholes, and just bottom line that you guys are out there, the police department is alerting you to potholes. Maybe briefly share that story as well. The more people that understand and how they can help you identify them perhaps, the better.
Sure. We welcome comments from the public to identify where the potholes are. Again, there's a misconception that every road, major road in Troy, is Troy's responsibility because we plow the snow. We are just responsible for the county roads for the snow removal, not the pothole repair. Unless it's an immediate threat and the police department warrants that it's a public health and safety issue, then we will respond like we did several weeks ago. But mind you, 67 miles of the major roads are county roads, and they are the county's responsibility to maintain as far as potholes. You're welcome to call the DPW if you're unclear of what's a city and what's a county road, and we can direct you to the county website. They have a really easy way to notify them of these potholes. And Troy also has a really easy way. You could use our portal on the city's website to report any potholes. And again, no matter the jurisdiction, if it's county, we'll certainly pass it on to the county.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
Yep. Budgetary issues aside, I think you're doing a great job, and I appreciate the fact that you give us updates whenever there's an event. And I've been able to put some of that information on Facebook to try to educate people and tell them what's coming, and especially the fact that you brought me a map so that we could identify the areas that you rotate through. And recently, I think you put that on the city's website as well. So again, the information's there. The more education we can put out there, the fewer the complaints are, I think. So great job, and wear your snow boots. I don't see any.
I don't think you've gotten much sleep here in the last weekend, but yeah, thanks from all of us for what you do.
And I would remiss if I didn't mention the staff that we have and the hours they put in. They're getting to the point where they're on edge. they've lost a lot of sleep, put a lot of hours in, and I do have to publicly thank them for all they've done and the times that they come in that I know they have to leave their family in their warm homes.
Thank you. I did talk to Reverend Williams this evening and asked her if she would say a prayer for us to get it a little warmer, and she said she would do that. Okay, there are no carryover items, so we're going to move to public hearings. We have one public hearing scheduled this evening. E1 is a rezoning application, file number Z745, proposed Amber Center townhomes and lofts, west side of Livernois, north of Town Center, which is 3409 Livernois, Section 21 from O Office District to BB Big Beaver District. And I will open that public hearing, and I see Brent is eagerly waiting to make a presentation. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Slater. Eagerly.
Eagerly.
That's debatable.
I see that crowd behind you.
Yes, yes. Waiting for the PowerPoint to go up. How about a joke?
I went through this last meeting.
It's kind of an awkward feeling standing here right now.
Especially the cameras on you.
Exactly. It is a narrative connected to the PowerPoint, so I wanted to.
It's okay. I see.
Yeah.
See, help has arrived.
Do you have a joke?
Not a good one.
I'm not opposed to taking a small recess either if we think we need it. Take about 3 minutes, and we'll be in recess for 3 minutes. I just didn't.
Now?
Go for it.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting a rezoning from O Office to BB Big Beaver. And there's a general location map. The site is located the northwest corner of Livernois and Town Center Drive, Section 21. There's an aerial photograph of the site. It's approximately 1.2 acres in size. It's presently vacant. There's nothing on the site, not even a tree. And I would note it is served by municipal water and municipal sewer. The land uses to the north and to the west are office. To the south, across Town Center, is a city park. And to the east, across Livernois, is a mixture of vacant property and some single-family residential homes. In terms of traffic access, the site obviously fronts on both Livernois and on Town Center. You will notice there's a curb cut that's on the property to the north that's very close to the subject property. And with that curb cut location, as well as Town Center Drive to the south, there's not a lot of room there to fit an additional curb cut safely. So in all likelihood, access to the site will be off of Town Center. There is an existing cross-access easement that connects this property to the north. So that'll assist in providing access to the property, as well as distributing traffic to and from the site. It should be noted that this property's been vacant for a number of years. The city has an abundance of land that's used and zoned for office. There's a pretty high vacancy rate, depending on who you talk to. It's above 20%. So it's unlikely that this property would be developed as an office under the underlying zoning anytime soon, at least in the near future. In terms of zoning, there's a zoning map. Property to the north and to the west is zoned O Office. To the south of across Town Center is CF Community Facilities. And to the east across Livernois, the zoning is R1E, one family residential. There's a slide on the wall of the future land use map that's in the City of Troy master plan. And the master plan designates this area as being within the Big Beaver Road land use classification. The entire commercial parcel, you see it here in red, on the north side of Town Center between Livernois and the tennis bubble is classified as Big Beaver Road classification under the master plan. It is the only designated Big Beaver property that is not either fronting on Big Beaver here in red or contiguous to parcels that front on Big Beaver. It is by itself, but it is clearly designated as Big Beaver in the master plan. The concept of the Big Beaver Road classification really was identified in 2006 when the Big Beaver Corridor Study was developed, and recommendations from the Big Beaver Corridor Study were incorporated into the City of Troy master plan in 2008 when the master plan was adopted, and that's when the Big Beaver classification was officially adopted. The Big Beaver classification does promote high density, vertically integrated mixed use, and a range of uses including commercial, office, and residential. And the master plan also does encourage additional residential both on Big Beaver and in close proximity to Big Beaver. I put this slide together. I call it points of clarification. I couldn't come up with a better title. I've had a lot of dialogue, questions, comments from staff, residents, the applicant, city council, planning commissioners about rezonings in general. And I thought it would be a good idea just to go over some of these points for the record and just make sure everyone's on the same page. So there's 5 what I call points of clarification. Number 1, the applicant is before City Council this evening for consideration of a rezoning application. That is an application to amend the zoning district map. The approval requires a majority vote of 4 members. There are there've been a couple of petitions, that have been circulated and signed. Those petitions were provided to City Council. None of those petitions qualify as a valid protest petition under state law, which would trigger a requirement for a supermajority vote. So because it didn't qualify, it needs a vote of 4, but again, you're aware that there have been some petitions, so that you've got that information before you. Secondly, this application is not a conditional rezoning. The applicant did not voluntarily submit conditions with the rezoning application. This is permitted under state law. The applicant can voluntarily submit conditions to condition the approval tied to a site plan. That didn't happen in this case, okay? So therefore, City Council cannot condition approval of the rezoning this evening. Third, if the property is zoned to Big Beaver, any use and building type permitted on the underlying property would be permitted, okay? It's not, it's when you rezone the property, you open it up for everything that can be done under that district. 4, the maximum height permitted on the property, if it's rezoned to Big Beaver, would be 72 feet. That's as high as it could go theoretically. The underlying O district, which is a zone today, permits 36 feet. So it's an increase of 36 feet, potentially. And 5th, and this is where it gets fuzzy, because it's important to separate the two processes. Again, they're before you this evening for a rezoning application. They've also submitted a preliminary site plan application for a 60-unit, 61-foot-high apartment building that's comprised of a mix of loft and townhouse units. Okay, that's on file, and that's waiting. It can't be considered by Planning Commission until it's rezoned. Okay, so the site plan is not being considered this evening, so we don't want to focus on the details of the site plan. That's not before us. But it has been provided to the city as a good faith effort. The applicants indicated this is what they want to do. Is it binding at this time? No. No, what it means is they've invested a lot of time and money in putting together a complete application to indicate that this is the direction they want to go in, but it's not binding. Any questions on the points of clarification? I can go on. Okay. Yeah.
So,
Councilman Campbell?
I understand the conditional, we cannot put a condition on him because unless he comes to us and says he's going to do a condition. So it's either we give him the land the way it, rezone it the way it is, and that's it.
You vote yes or you vote no.
Okay. And we're doing this without having any clue of what he's going to put there, whether it's going to be a 5-story, all apartments, townhouses. So we're voting basically, we're going to give him the land, we're not going to give him the land. What he's going to put on it's not really any of our business at this point.
Well, I think it's your business. We actually require that they provide a concept sketch as part of the application because we want to know, generally what the intention is, but we don't. It's not binding, and it's really as kind of a good. The concept plan requirement is a good faith thing. But you're right. Really the question to be asked is, but this evening is, does it meet the standards of rezoning that's in the zoning ordinance, and is it consistent with the master plan? Those are the big questions. What we don't want to do is get tied up in, boy, I really don't like the design of the building, or I really like the design of the building, or boy, the apartments really, it really is really pushing my buttons. I want to vote for this. That's really not the question before you this evening. It's the rezoning. Is it appropriate based on the master plan and based on the standards?
Councilman Pennington.
So, just to clarify this again, once we rezone this, they can put whatever they want on that site.
It would be subject to meeting the requirements of the zoning ordinance in terms of use, form, and all the requirements of the zoning ordinance. So there would still be standards in place in the zoning ordinance to ensure that they'd meet our requirements.
All right.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
This property, you said, was City of Troy property. Is it still City of Troy property, or what? How does that transaction take place? Or has it, or will it?
Would I be putting you on the spot, Lori, if you answered this question? I know it's kind of a complicated situation how they're intending to purchase this property. Do you know more about this situation than me?
No.
Okay. I think they've got an offer on the property.
Okay, but the transaction hasn't been consummated currently.
Mr. Cowan can answer that question a lot better than I could in terms of the status and what's involved.
Let's focus on questions
sure.
for Brent that has the point of interest. We're going to have a lot of questions, I'm
Absolutely.
sure.
I just thought the timing was good for
and it is, but just we know that this is a yes or no, but there are variables that come into play on whether you make a yes or no. decision, even though we are making a yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that you take into consideration.
Which leads into my next slide.
Okay.
Section 1603C of the zoning ordinance, standards for approval. These standards should be considered by Planning Commission, by City Council prior to making a decision on a rezoning application. So what this says is, a rezoning may only be approved upon a finding and a determination that all of the following are satisfied, and there's 5, okay? The first, the proposed rezoning is consistent with the master plan. If the current zoning is in material conflict with the master plan, such conflict is due to one of the following 3 things: a change in city policy since the master plan was adopted, a change in conditions since the master plan was adopted, or an error in the master plan. Secondly, the proposed rezoning will not cause or increase any nonconformity. 3, public services and facilities affected by a proposed development will be capable of accommodating service and facility loads caused by use of the development. 4, the rezoning will not impact public health, safety, and welfare. And 5, the rezoning will ensure compatibility with adjacent uses of land. These were considered by the Planning Commission. They're considered by you this evening. Finally, this is my last slide. Findings. So these findings were presented to the Planning Commission, and they were presented to you as well. 5 findings that are critical to making a determination. 1, the request complies with the master plan and meets the standards of Section 1603C of the zoning ordinance, which we just went over. 2, the form-based district would permit greater flexibility in use and development of the property. 3, the abundance of office district property in the city has been well documented. 4, the rezoning would be compatible with surrounding zoning and land use. And 5, the site can be adequately served with municipal water and sewer. These findings were, again, presented to the Planning Commission. They considered them at their public hearing on January 14th, 2014, recommended approval of the rezoning by a 6-2 vote. And with that being said, Mr. Mayor, City Management recommends approval of the rezoning, and I can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Councilman Fleming.
Yes, Brent. The requirements for building a building and putting a structure in the Big Beaver versus office are much more stringent, I believe, in the Big Beaver as far as requirements from the city based on that zoning. Could you maybe summarize how much more stringent the requirements are in Big Beaver versus general office to put a building?
Yes, the Big Beaver district is what's known as a form-based district, and what it does is it's more regulatory in terms of the form, what the site looks like, how the site's developed, what the building looks like. The Big Beaver district, I could have talked all night about the Big Beaver corridor study and what we're trying to get to, but really what it's attempting to do is create a world-class corridor, the Big Beaver, and in the areas proximate to Big Beaver. And how do you do that? You do that by strengthening the relationship between the building and the street, engaging the buildings, engaging the space between the building and the street with the street, and mixing uses. Specific to this site, it depends on what form. There's 4 different forms that this site area would be able to be 4 different forms could be built on this property if it was rezoned, A, B, C, and D. And basically, the lower the profile of the building, the closer it has to be to the street. So it's got a strong relationship with the street. If it was under its existing zoning, it would not have, this is called a build to line. It actually requires that relationship be there with the street by requiring no more, you can only be 10 feet from the right of way. You can be up to 30 if you provide some interesting public space. Under the existing O office zoning, there's not that requirement. There's actually a setback requirement that requires the building to be further away. So there's some design criteria that ensures that the development in this district it's a higher standard. There's also some transparency requirements that requires more glass, more doors, functioning doors that have a relationship with the street. So again, I could talk forever on this, but hopefully that answers your question.
Councilman Teets?
Just a question. When someone applies for a rezoning like this, you mentioned the request for a good faith. I mean, is this something that's written out on a napkin? I mean, we've seen paperwork, but what do you expect to see when you make that request, or is that something that's mandatory or not? I'm just wondering.
It's really, the conditional rezoning has got to be voluntarily offered by the applicant. And the intent is for we'll call them tricky applications where there's going to be some opposition, maybe it's close to the neighbors, and there's some potential secondary impacts associated with the development, noise, height, fumes, these types of things. The applicant can condition the rezoning to mitigate the secondary impacts of those elements. For example, if height is an issue, the applicant could say, look, I want to rezone to this district. I know that the maximum height is 50 feet. The neighbors aren't going to like 50 feet. I will voluntarily condition the application on the height of the building being no taller than 30 feet. And that's something I volunteer, and I'll put it in writing. And that goes in the form of a conditional rezoning agreement. But that's got to be voluntarily offered by the applicant. So we can't require it. We always have the conversation at the beginning saying, have you thought about it? But we can't force the issues by state law. That it's got to be voluntarily offered. Does that answer your question?
Councilman Pennington?
So just to follow up on that, so when you see these rezoning requests, aren't they usually followed with a application for, conditional?
Are they, could you?
Where they tell you what they're going to, basically what they're going to put on the property, what their conditions are.
The way that based on my experience in Troy with conditional rezoning applications is what has happened is we've had applications that start off as just a traditional rezoning, but maybe there's a public hearing at the Planning Commission where there's a lot of opposition that's been expressed, and the applicant says, you know what, please postpone me. We want to consider conditional rezoning. We'll go back to the drawing board, come up with some conditions, and come back with a site plan. That's happened. It's also happened where the applicant has presented a conditional rezoning right out of the gate because they know that it's controversial for some reason. So it really depends on the rezoning, the property, the use proposed, and a lot of different factors. And the applicant, sometimes the applicant wants to engage in that process, sometimes they don't. It's really a case-by-case basis. The key is it's got to be voluntarily offered by the applicant.
Any questions? Is the developer going to speak at the public hearing?
I think he intended to.
Okay, before he does, could you go back to your findings? Number 4, rezoning would be compatible with surrounding zoning and land use. Now, could you go back to the map right there? When they looked at the Big Beaver study, when they decided that BB would be good for this area in conjunction with the community center, that was taking the whole parcel into account, not just this small 1.2 acres, correct?
Correct. If you look at the future land use map,
right,
it's really from Livernois to about the tennis bubble.
Right.
It's that whole piece that's on the north side of
now,
town center.
Today, that's kind of a mishmash, isn't it, of zoning? I'm looking at the map. You got office. What is directly west of there? Is that still office?
Yes. You've got office to the north and office to the...
So it's basically the whole section that they thought would be good for BB is completely all office.
Zoned office at this time, yes.
Except for this?
Except for some parking to the north.
Some parking?
Yes.
Except for this 1.2 acres?
Well, the 1.2 acres is also zoned
office. That's the only section that in this, what I'm trying to say is, in 2008, when they decided that this would maybe be good for BB, they were talking about a bigger parcel than 1.2 acres.
Long-term,
I would assume.
Long-term, the long-term vision for, I'll answer it this way, the long-term vision for that whole section of area was to eventually evolve into Big Beaver zoning.
Now, what are the possibilities of that happening? Slim to none?
I would say...
You would have to tear down all the offices that are there now. Okay. Councilman Teets.
That's true, I guess, but it would just be like tearing down an office building to build a hotel, which we just recently did. I mean, it happens from time to time. I guess the Big Beaver study that's a vision sort of document, correct? I mean, it's not something we hope in 4 or 5, 8 years. It's a vision document, so I guess I understand where you're coming from, but I think in the same way.
I wanted to clarify.
But, things have changed over time. I mean, we had a huge office building that they're tearing down because it was the vacancy rate, and where they are now building a hotel nearby, so.
And in the future, we are intending to look at the master plan.
That's correct.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
Brent, on that map, we're in front of us tonight is whether we're to rezone that entire red.
This piece, 1.2 acres at the corner of Town Center and Livernois, right here.
And can you tell me, with the Amber apartment complex, how much of that property is that entirely for that particular project?
For the project in its entirety, including building and parking and dumpster and et cetera, all the ancillary things that would go along with development.
Okay. Now, and the office buildings behind that are still zoned office?
Correct.
Correct, okay. So we would have to rezone, if somebody were to come in and want to put a hotel there, we would have to rezone that as well.
Yeah, it's important to note that in terms of future development of the property, as I indicated, it's 1.2 acres, fairly small. And as you're probably all aware, what really drives how intense you can make a site is if you can park it. Parking really drives what you can do in a site. So in this instance, well, in all instances, the more intense the use, the more parking that's going to be required, the lower the building profile is going to be, the smaller the building is going to be. Because residential happens to have the lowest requirement for parking load, the building can go the highest because it's the least intense use. So the more intense, the lower the building, the more parking, the less intense, the higher the building. Okay, so if this were to be rezoned to Big Beaver, again, the building could, in theory, be as high as 72 feet. But that's not going to happen for an office, is for commercial. The higher a higher building relative to other uses is going to be residential. And if it's an office or if it's commercial, it's going to be probably 1 story.
Just because of the parking?
Because of the parking.
Councilman Bennington.
Just got one more question. They haven't purchased the property, it's just contingent on the rezoning, is that correct?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Cowan when he comes up and speaks, if that's all right.
Any other questions for Brent? Councilman Fleming?
Just clarify, office vacancy, office building vacancy in Troy, you had a number, you said 20%? What was that? I thought it was higher than that. But right now, if we left this office and we tied this down and said this can't be Big Beaver, this has to be office, and we sit there with this 1.2 acres waiting on office to be built, what's the vacancy rate on offices, buildings now in Troy?
Mark, have you got that figure at your fingertips?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, our last discussions with our assessor, it was just under 30%. And it's been about that for quite a while, but there has been some slow absorption in the market.
I can say anecdotally, where things are picking up, you can see the development on Big Beaver, and we're getting more applications. Not a lot of office. I mean, there's no office.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
72 feet would be the height limit if this is rezoned, correct? How many stories roughly is 72 feet, or what could it possibly be?
6. Really, the height is what, I mean, the height is really the impact. Not so much, I don't focus much on stories. When you talk about massing, it's really what people see is the
I'm just trying to get
peak of that roof. Yeah.
Where we're at.
With the peak of the roof, six stories.
The height.
The height.
The height in relationship to the grade. So 72 feet, but I think it's 6 stories.
Any questions for Brent? Councilman Pennington.
Are there any other six-story buildings north of that, or would that be the?
There are in
on Livernois?
In Northfield off of Crooks.
Mayor Slater?
Councilwoman Hudak.
The master plan was developed in 2008 that we're working with now, right? Approved, and we've been working with it. It gets re-reviewed every 5 years?
Yes.
And we are currently working with Planning Commission to step up to do that review, and that's a meeting that we're having in just a couple weeks. We're starting that process, correct?
We actually have a study meeting with Planning Commission tomorrow to go over the schedule.
Okay. I'm just getting my sea legs about where we are with the master plan. And so it's a 5-year-old document at this point. Okay.
You're required by state law to review it every 5 years and make a finding or determination if it's still valid. Planning Commission, basically their determination was it's in really good shape, we need to fine tune a little bit, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
Thank you, Brent. I have a couple of legal questions. Maybe I'll ask those before we ask the developer to make a presentation. If I could, City Attorney Bloom. If this is approved and the developer chooses to back out of this, he could sell the property to somebody else? Is that correct?
That is correct, and the standards, the Big Beaver zoning would be the new governing limitations.
And in other cases, if we rezoned it BB, it was sold to somebody else, we couldn't come back and change it to O again for much the same reason that we couldn't do anything with the assisted living property? Would that be correct?
There is no guarantee that you will receive a rezoning. Again, you have to go through the analysis that Brent pointed out in 39-1603C. And at that point, if that happens, then you'd have to look at what the master plan designation is. You'd have to look at whether or not the terms of 39-1603 were satisfied. But it would require a process to do that.
Any other questions for the city attorney? Okay, thanks, Brent. If we could ask the developer to come forward. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Dennis Cowan. I'm with the law firm Plunkett Cooney. I'm representing Amber Properties Company, and with me is Jerry Amber, one of the principals of the company. We're very pleased to be here this evening with you. As I was watching the Grammys last night, I was trying to think of a song that might describe our path to get here, and I've picked the Beatles, The Long and Winding Road. But we're finally here, and we're glad we're here. I hope during the course of my presentation and our presentation, we can clarify and answer a lot of the questions that you have posed during the preamble to the hearing. If we don't, please ask us. We'll do our very best to answer your question. First, last October, Amber Properties took the unusual step of having to go to Oakland County Probate Court in order to acquire court approval of its purchase agreement, because this property is in a conservatorship it's the estate of Emma Barnett, who is alive but unable to handle her financial affairs. So Thomas Brennan Frazier, who is an attorney in Oakland County, was appointed by Judge Daniel O'Brien to be the conservator, and that is who we worked with in October. An important factor I want to tell you about that court approval is the judge gave us 4 months to get all of our approvals. So that was October 23rd, a day I remember well. So we have roughly somewhere around February 20th or so. We're on the path for that. In fact, Mr. Amber took the highly unusual step, I've never had a client do this, before the rezoning was finalized. He actually authorized the architect to put together the site plan package. But we also did that for a very clear reason. We wanted a statement on the record for the Planning Commission when they voted the second time, and for you to know that that is what we are going to build. I can't make it any clearer. That is exactly what we intend to do. And I can tell you in the last 7 projects in Royal Oak and Clawson, I've worked with Mr. Amber. Every plan that he submitted is what was approved and what he built. There is no intent. All Amber Properties does is build apartments. They don't own any commercial. They don't own any office. That's what they're all about. That's the business they're best at, and that's the business that they're successful in. So I want to make it clear that that's why we presented that plan. It was beyond good faith. It was what we plan to do. So after going to probate court and getting the approval, we then, of course, as I mentioned, we ended up going to 2 planning commission meetings. We like to visit them often, but there was a small mishap, and we understood that, and the planning department, who's been absolutely excellent to us, and we've been able to work very well with them, we had to notice a second meeting, and we were just before the Planning Commission a couple of weeks ago. In addition, as my letter to you stated, that we've been very proactive, and we try to respond to all of our commercial and residential neighbors and the issues that they have. We may not always agree, but we are transparent. We have said what we're going to do, and we've made that clear from the very beginning. But we stand before you very pleased that we've had a positive recommendation for rezoning at both of the Planning Commission meetings, and also from your outside planning consultant, Carlisle Wortman Associates. Now, Mr. Amber and I recognize, anytime there's change, there are questions, concerns, and even occasionally opposition. And we respect that reasonable minds may differ. But many times, change is for the better, and that's why we're here today. Amber is requesting this zoning change to the Big Beaver District to allow consideration by the Planning Commission of its townhouse loft project that complies with your master plan. On page 83 of your master plan, in discussing housing options, it says that the city needs to more fully embrace urban housing styles, and also that the city of Troy must recognize the importance of having a variety of housing styles represented within the community, and describes how having these units will help Troy become a more vibrant place. And it adds that this is an area where Troy has room to grow. Well, Amber agrees, would like to grow with the city of Troy, and wants to help fill, at least in a small way, that gap that you have in your housing options. The Amber project we've proposed, and those who have been built recently, are both urban and upscale. They include wood floors, open and exposed ceilings, metal stairways, washer and dryer in every living space, garage parking for the townhomes, all the elements and amenities that attract a variety of professional workers. And we believe this is an excellent location for access to your civic center amenities, your community center, Big Beaver businesses and restaurants and shops, all within a short walking distance or a bike ride from this particular site. Now, Amber believes that the rezoning will not be detrimental to any of the adjacent properties, and I think what the mayor has already referenced is already a mixed-use area. It's got office, medical office, residential, commercial, and municipal uses. Now, typically, Amber properties are directly next door to a residential neighborhood. That's been true of all of their properties in Clawson and in Royal Oak, the last 7 projects that we built. In this particular instance, where our building is going to be located to the nearest residence to the north is 300 feet. That's a football field. So many of the concerns that we faced and challenges we overcame when there was direct, what I call side-by-side, residential and multifamily right next to one another, are not in effect here. The distance is too great. Also, we want to emphasize that the project, what we submitted to the planning department, does not require any variances. And that's very important to Mr. Amber. When you have a lot of variances on a project, that means somebody's trying to overbuild it. and that usually ends up as a mistake for everybody involved, both the tenants and the nearby neighbors. The parking meets all requirements. There is more than adequate lot coverage, and there is less height and density than the maximum allowed under your ordinance. And I want to add that I know there's been a little discussion about a conditional zoning agreement and a straightforward rezoning. That's always an important issue for anyone purchasing property, to try and read the tea leaves, so to speak, and figure out the best way to go. We had a couple of compelling issues here. We had a short time frame. Your straight zoning procedure is much clearer in the ordinance. Seems to be pretty straightforward to how you proceed. And unfortunately, because of time constraints, we needed to get answers along the way. It also presented the opportunity for us to go first to the Planning Commission and get a read from the Planning Commission of where they were on this particular issue and any recommendations they had. Not presenting you with a conditional zoning agreement, I hope, is not taken as any attempt to evade any of your requirements. In fact, the Big Beaver ordinance itself, that district ordinance, is 9 pages long and cross-references you to a number of charts, forms, and other parts of the code. And we are complying with all those. We're not attempting to evade in any way, shape, or form the requirements and the oversight, and the correct oversight, that the City of Troy has over this project. In essence, we're not trying to fit a square peg in a round hole or overbuild in any sense. As I mentioned, that usually ends up being a mistake, both for the business involved and all the other adjacent neighbors. So as my letter states, we believe we meet all the requirements for the rezoning as has been approved and recommended by the Planning Commission and your professional consultant. But at the end of the day, in addition to the plans and the fulfillment of all those requirements, part of your decision is, what is the City of Troy getting? In essence, what are you buying? And I think we have a very positive picture to paint for you. First, Amber Apartments and Properties Company has been in Troy for a number of years. It's a family-run company that's been in existence since 1960, managing, operating, constructing over 1,200 units in Clawson, Troy, and Royal Oak. There's 4 properties here in Troy with 183 units on Kurtz Boulevard and Venus. They also, a couple years ago, acquired, give me the correct name of the creek, Sutter's Creek.
Sutter's Creek.
Apartment complex, which had been a huge problem, and they've corrected that problem and is turning it into a much more functional, upscale, and positive development within your community. Now, Amber enjoys an excellent reputation in all the communities in which it does business, and that's reflected by the fact that they have 98% occupancy levels across all their properties. Just not 1 or 2. All of their properties are at a 98% occupancy level. You don't get that unless you're satisfying the customer. There's no business that wouldn't love to have a 98% success rate like Amber Apartments does. We built 7 new projects in the last 7 years, ranging from 8 units to 72 units. They've all been successful, and they bring value to the community. And the value goes beyond brick and mortar. It's also in the residents that come and live in those multifamily units. In our last 2 projects, Amber Corners and Amber Crossings, they have a very positive tenant demographic. 80% of those residents hold a bachelor's, master's, PhD, JD, or MD. Their yearly income is in excess of $60,000 a year. The rentals for those units range anywhere from $825 to $2,200 a month. And most likely at this location, it's going to be in excess of that. And we believe that these are rates that clearly are not for the faint of heart. These are tenants who vote, they pay taxes through their rent payments, they purchase goods and services in the community, and they contribute to its vitality. We believe these are the types of residents, future residents, that Troy wishes to attract, and this is a rezoning that fits with your master plan. We believe that in many ways this is the right project on the right property at the right time. We hope you agree and will allow us the opportunity to move forward with the project and return to the Planning Commission for the site plan process. Mr. Amber, do you have anything to add?
Only to agree wholeheartedly with your comments, Dennis, and also to say how much we really want to do new construction in Troy. We have built properties in Royal Oak and Clawson. This would be our first new construction development in Troy since my late father and uncle built buildings in 1968. And our tenants who we rent to and we listen to all the time tell us they want to live in Troy. And that's why when we located this parcel, we think it's a perfect site near the community center and near the public facilities. It's the perfect place to build units and bring new residents and vitality to the city.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councilman Fleming.
I know you've done the site plan preliminarily. We're not really supposed to talk about that, but I do have a question.
Yes.
What residents are concerned about, and I've driven down Timberview, when you look out across Timberview, you see Columbia Center, you see the Marriott right now with all the leaves off the trees and so forth. So you see these huge buildings. You can even see the top of Troy building. When these residents look out now, immediately behind them, there's a buffer with the office buildings and so forth, the ones that back up, that face Timberview and back up to this. Have you done any study or any site plans or site views, line of sight views? Because I know we did this when we had the hotels we just recently approved to tear down an office building and put a hotel because there's too many offices. Have you done anything in your preliminary work that you can demonstrate what the residents are really going to see when they look out their back from 100 yards away, when they look out the back of their house or the front of their house, wherever, what they're really going to be looking at? When you take consideration the existing buildings and the trees, a line of sight. Do you understand what I'm saying about line of sight study? Maybe you don't have it. I don't know.
No, we do. And we'd be glad to share it with you. We'll pass it out. If I can ask our architect, we did a line of sight study.
Just give it to the clerk, please. Thank you.
Actually, we can share one. Oh, hey.
Yes, we had Councilman Fleming. This is an issue that generally comes up, and we're preparing this for the Planning Commission, but I asked that it be brought tonight if this question came up so that we could show you on the line of sight study. We have to the south, it would be to your left if you're looking at this, the proposed townhomes and lofts project. And so if you look at that and you look at the sight line, taking into consideration the building at 3415, and looking, there's a tree line, there's some very mature trees along most of the adjacent to the residential units or to the subdivision. And certainly we recognize there's a few gaps, but if you look at this particular sightline study, it appears that the only at the top, at I believe what is the mezzanine level, could you look down over to the homes
Above the houses.
or above the houses, right. And that's going to be blocked by the trees that are there in place.
Yeah. Dennis, maybe I can just add a couple words. The tree line, we did a topographic survey that shows the trees and all the existing buildings, and it shows a line of 55-foot tall trees and also conifers. So there are both deciduous as well as conifer trees that are still growing. And in addition to this, this is today, there is a landscape plan, which again was submitted with our proposal to the Planning Commission, which shows additional landscaping and additional trees that will have conifers and junipers that will be anywhere as they mature between 30 and 70 feet as the trees mature. So I think really there is no line of sight issue based on both current conditions at the site and future.
And just so there's a clarification, the landscaping that Mr. Amber just referenced is on the property that he's intending, that he has the purchase offering on. It's on the northern property line is where that has to go. And that's on, this is all on the landscape plan that has been submitted to the Planning Commission.
Councilman Campbell.
This is a line of sight, but I'm not sure it answers what Councilman Fleming asked. I don't think we're really concerned with the guy on the third floor, what he can see. I think we're more concerned with what the people who live there look out their doors and they can see.
Well, I think if you reverse this, you look at the fact that they're going to be looking, they're going to have trees in their sight line. I believe there's a wall along part of that. There is also, there's at least one larger building that I think is 3455, I think it is. It's the building that's closest to the residential units. So if you put it in reverse, you could look and say if somebody's standing at the rear of their house, they have to look over a wall, they have to look over trees, and they have to look over the buildings. You know, so I think that, so in any event, the original thing we heard Councilman Fleming was that there was concern about people looking into the back of someone's backyard. We had this line of sight study done for that purpose. Okay, so I want to make that clear. Right. Yeah. And we hope that helps. I think gives some perspective to the reverse. Yeah.
I think we're going to hear from residents who live in the neighborhood that they don't believe that that's probably accurate. And it depends what kind of trees they are. As we know, if you live in Michigan, if you're lucky to have 6 months of leaves on the trees, that might be a lot. Okay. So I would just like to caution the audience that you will get an opportunity to speak. Please look at the rules that are published in the agenda and wait for your opportunity to speak at the podium, please. Are there questions for the developer, Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Can you just give us a distinction between an apartment and a townhouse? I mean, they're both rental pieces, but what differentiates those?
Absolutely. As I mentioned to those at the Planning Commission meeting, we want to have a mix of unit types and styles and sizes to respond to the market. And so the building that is being planned and the drawing submitted will have 20 townhome units that are 3 stories with an inside garage with parking for 2 cars each. And then there will be an elevator serving the 4th floor and the 5th floor, and there will be studios and lofts on the upper levels above the townhomes. So it's a mix of 20 units of each type.
Councilman Pennington.
I got a question on the landscaping that you propose for the new building. I'm just curious where it goes on the property. I'm not 100% sure.
Well, there is a site plan that the Planning Department and Planning Commission have seen that shows there is an 11-foot green belt along the northern property line of this parcel of land. And it will consist of a huge number of trees, more than I've ever seen that we've done before, both junipers and conifers, and those are all evergreen trees, the idea being it's a green screen, which is what the Troy zoning ordinance is calling for, and particularly in the Big Beaver district.
But it's only 11 feet wide?
It's 11 feet wide with this row of trees that runs east to west.
Okay.
And once again, I'd like to point out to council that we are here this evening to determine a rezoning, and what may or may not happen is for a discussion in the future if it's approved. Councilman Tietz?
So when the Planning Commission approved this, they had this and other designs as well in hand, or?
No.
No.
No, that's not. They were a rezoning request. We filled out the application, gave a statement showed up at the meeting. I believe there was a concept plan.
Yes, and there was a site plan that accompanied it as a concept, which showed what we're talking about today.
But that's on a normal rezoning. That is typically, our experience in every community we've been in. The more formal submittal we have already made for the February 11th Planning Commission meeting. That would be your site plan review.
If it gets approved this evening.
Oh, absolutely, and I want to make that clear. We did not do that. Actually, we had a timeline set up. We didn't expect we were going to have to go back for the second meeting.
Understood.
So that did kind of...
And just a comment from, I appreciate you doing that. I know you did not have to do that. I know there is a cost involved in that. I've talked to many, many people who have high regard for Mr. Amber, and I am not questioning his word that he would back out on this project. That is not an issue with me in particular. Quite frankly, my issue is the intent in 2008 for the Big Beaver corridor in that particular section. I was on council when we approved the new ordinance, took a look at that, and personally, from my point of view, that, in my opinion, was not the intent to take 1.2 acres and turn that into BB and leave the rest office and mixed. So that's where I have the issue at this point. Any other questions for the developer? I thank you very much. Councilman Fleming.
I know we're going to hear from the residents, and I'm looking forward to hearing from them. But you had the buffer there with businesses. What, have you met with the businesses? What did they say about this project? Because they're your closest neighbor.
Yeah, and I think some of them may be here this evening, and we don't want to we'll let them speak for themselves, but I will tell you that Dr. Golden came to the first Planning Commission meeting, and Mr. Amber met with him to explain the project, and of course it was then refined with the actual submittal of the site plan. We have had contact with Mr. Famey just on the phone, and he is involved with the physical therapy center that's in the building towards the rear, and he asked for a copy of the landscape plan, and we sent it to him. So and I answered some questions. So I can't read, and I don't intend to read anyone's mind, but we have made the effort. We haven't ignored anyone and attempted to answer questions as they come up. And we, as I said in our letter, we're proactive and sent letters out and tried to engage in some dialogue.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. And if there are no other questions for the developer at this time, you would be available if we would ask some.
Absolutely. We'll be here for any follow-up. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Okay. We have about 10 or 12 residents who have signed up to speak on this item. If you haven't looked at the agenda, the rules of procedure, you will have 3 minutes to speak before council. Please use those 3 minutes wisely, and please know that the rules will be strictly enforced. And we appreciate your comments. We want to hear your comments, and let's be respectful tonight. Our first speaker is Troy resident Karen Cruz. Good evening.
Good evening, Your Honor. Good evening, council members.
You could speak into the microphone, please.
Oh, absolutely. I am a resident of Westwood Park. I sent you all a letter earlier this week. I hope you had the opportunity to read it, because given my 3 minutes tonight, I'm not going to be able to cover all of my concerns. What I am going to do is focus on my top 2 concerns, the first one being rezoning this parcel of land into Big Beaver District. I think you probably noticed when the map was up on the screens that that particular parcel of land does sit in isolation. It's very much apart from what is now designated the Big Beaver Corridor, and it wouldn't fit in. We talked about compatibility, which is my second area of concern. If you look north of Big Beaver and you drive north, I'm sorry, not north of Big Beaver, north of Livernois from Big Beaver, all the way to the city of Rochester, you will not pass any 5-story building along the way. Now, I don't know if when you were kids you watched Sesame Street and remember a little game called One of These Things is Not Like the Other, and you might see a knife and a fork and a spoon and then a hammer, and you had to pick which one of these things is not like the other. Your 5-story apartment building is not like the other. It does not blend in with anything that is in the area on that North Livernois corridor. It is office, it is residential, it is strip plaza, and it is all single story. So to put that there creates a huge eyesore, which I think that you ought to consider, and in particular as you look at your you review the future of the master plan from the 2008 decisions, how you want the city of Troy to look. Just because it's vacant land, just because you can build on it, doesn't mean you should, and you certainly shouldn't without thought. So those are my biggest concerns. I hope that you take them into consideration, not just for the residents of Westwood Park who would have to look at it and worry about who's peeking in our backyard, but for how the whole city of Troy is developed and how it looks going forward as we become a city of the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Troy resident John Cruz. I guessed that.
Good evening. My name's John Cruz. Karen, what she failed to tell you was that she's the association president for our association. I'm on the board as well. We happen to live in 55 Timberview Drive. And when the other buildings were put up, and the people that built those buildings did a wonderful job of working with us to make sure that we didn't look out our back window from our master bedroom and see their buildings. They did a phenomenal job of building it down low, helping us with those trees. Like someone said on the board, I think it was you, Mayor, we have 6 months of winter, and we don't have trees, leaves on those trees for 6 months. And that's one of my biggest concerns, is that from my master bedroom, we could see everything. And to suggest that the conifers and the other evergreens that are going to be placed there will overgrow and make that even better, I submit to you that that probably isn't going to happen for 30 to 40 years, and it doesn't seem to me, based on what I've seen with the other properties, that they leave a lot of positioning so that you could put those kind of trees between OMPT and the dentistry office and the eye surgery office. And if you go to look what they've done down on 13 Mile in Crooks, I don't see how they can do that with 60 units, with the parking spaces that they're going to do, and then all the other activity that's going to happen and going around the two corners, going back to the bubble, going back to the pool and everything else with our kids. Another concern is that they might have people parking in our subdivision. We try to do a very good job with Westwood Park, and that would be a concern of mine as well. And lastly, I also take offense, if you will, and I apologize if that concerns anybody, that I'm being told that I could not submit all 50 of our neighbors. Our petition was considered void because we were more than 100 feet away from the property. And for the gentleman to say that they are a football field away from us, I'd like you to come back to my yard, and it's not even 150 feet. It's not a football field. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dick Minnick, Troy resident. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Dick Minnick. My wife and I moved to Troy 40 years ago in 2 months, so we've been here a long time. In fact, when I moved here, Coolidge was gravel road, and I've seen a lot of changes. But going back in the old days, I think what made Troy really great and a wonderful place to live was we were very well known for having very strict building codes and zoning requirements. And when the building boom was going on, all the developers wanted to build in Troy, and they were more than happy to adhere to all of those codes and special requirements. And I think that's what really built Troy as being a wonderful place to live. But of course, it got built up, and needs changed, and the economy kind of sunk a little bit. And then the developers wanted to do some new things that didn't fit. So then we tried doing the PUDs, which in my opinion turned out not so well. The Planning Commission dragged some of the developers through all kinds of extra requirements to grant them what they wanted to do for mixed use. And we lost some very good proposed developments because we dragged it out so long that the developers gave up and went somewhere else. Now I fear that the pendulum is swinging the other way. I admit the PUD process was bad, and I think trying to do the new zoning is a step in the right direction to streamline that so that developers can get a project approved and done. But I fear the pendulum's going too far the other way. And now we, in an effort to rebuild our tax base, we're approving almost anything that builders want to do. And I fear that that's going to erode what we've been building in Troy for the last 40, 50 years. Particularly in this case, classifying that one little, barely 1.2 acre land as part of Big Beaver when it's not even connected, and it's almost a half a mile away. And allow this, it just doesn't fit. And it just doesn't, you know, as the other people said, it doesn't fit with what's surrounding in the area. I admit the plans are wonderful, and it's something we need in Troy, but I think it's the wrong place for it. For the people living there, sure, it's wonderful, but it really doesn't fit in with what we have in that area. And so I hope that you will agree and reject the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sanjay Shah, Troy resident. I hope I did that okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
First of all, I want to apologize to the city council members. I'm not an eloquent speaker. So I respectfully would apologize if I stumble or stutter. I want to thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I am a Westwood Park resident, but I do not want to stand in front of you as Westwood Park resident. I want to stand in front of you as a Troy resident. And in doing so, what I did was I talked to several of my Troy friends and their neighbors. Some of them I don't know personally, but they invited me to their house. Unfortunately, this petition is not valid, as I'm told, because it's 100 feet requirement. But I just want to let you know that there are several Troy residents, in addition to Westwood Park subdivision, who respectfully disagree with this development project. So that's number one. Second thing is I'm really happy that Troy is an upscale and transitioning to upscale community. And I am very glad that all businesses, including Ember Properties, are eager to do business with Troy. So we should be all proud of that they want to do business. And I'm respectfully agreeing with them that they should come in Troy. But as Mr. Dick Minnick said, this is not the right time or the place for that small stamp of property and build up an eyesore. Second point I'm confused about is, I'm told that this meeting is about rezoning and nothing to do with apartment complex or not apartment complex. And I'm seeing that majority of the time has been spent on describing the sightline, the 60 units, upscale, PhDs and JDs and degrees and all that kind of stuff. So that's one thing which is confusing to me. To a common man like me, what matters to me is we are saying that, hey, instead of office, somebody tomorrow can build up to 72 feet height of a structure in that property. So in my simple mind, what I'm looking at is it an office, which is a low-story building, or is it a 72 feet high? What does city wants to approve is what I'm looking at. So, and couple of concerns I have regarding rezonings are, taller the building, more traffic. If you look at the Troy Center Drive, it's a one lane each way. And I play tennis at the Troy Bubble. It takes me approximately 2 to 3 minutes to make a left-hand turn from that signal to go to my Westwood Park resident. So just keep that in mind, that it's a one-lane Troy Civic Center Drive where we are talking about building a huge structure, apartment maybe, or maybe something else tomorrow, which would have significant amount of traffic. And lastly, what I want to say is this.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker is James Peterson, Troy resident. Good evening.
Good evening. I'll be brief here. I, like some of the other residents, are opposed to this rezoning. We don't really feel that what's being proposed really meets the master plan as far as the aesthetics and the attributes that are being brought to the area, particularly this area that's right here in the midst of the community center and all that goes along with it. I think one of the main goals of the master plan was to bring more residents in, and I think that the heart of that plan was to bring tax-paying residents in who are going to be, through their taxes, helping to support the tremendous schools we have and the tremendous other attributes that make us all perfectly willing to make the sacrifice to pay the taxes. And our taxes are up there, but in our opinion, they're worth every single penny that we pay. And if it came down to increasing taxes to support the library and other things that we have here, we, at least as one family, would be willing to do that. We see this development, this huge, potentially 61 feet, I think is what planned. It could go as high as 72. To think that that won't affect the quality of our lives and our line of sight is ridiculous. Our wall in the back is approximately 10 foot tall. I can easily see a 61-foot building over the top. Our tree line isn't continuous. The idea that somehow eventually this property is going to be screened from our property, that with trees on their property that are going to be 60 or 70 feet tall, well, they're going to be some pretty unusual trees if you manage to get a 60-foot high tree planted in an 11-foot green strip. That's going to be pretty unusual. So it will affect our quality of life. We do believe it will affect our property values, and we are hoping that council will decide not to do this. It sounds like a good development, something that could be good for Troy, but this isn't the place for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Robert Warner, Troy resident and business owner.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm a Troy resident and a business owner since 1999. I have a law firm, 12 employees. I'm also a resident of Westwood Park, and obviously I'm opposed. I can tell you that the rezoning is inappropriate, just like everybody else has done. I can tell you it would invite some disastrous things that could occur there should an apartment building, 5-story apartment building, not go up, such as a White Castle, a gas station, a 6-story motel could very well go in that property. I think that would be a disaster. That property is very much linked to the campus-like environment that we have here for the city center. As I travel to various district courts around in the city, they have disastrous downtowns. They don't have any campuses. We have a beautiful campus here, and I've considered it as such, a campus. And to the north, we have these buildings that have now been put on this parcel. As the mayor pointed out, those weren't there a long time ago, but now they are. They're one-story campus-like buildings. They fit in, they look nice, they're appropriate to the community and the environment. So the truth is, though, there really is no need to rezone the property to accommodate any other use like that. It is appropriate office. We had some discussion tonight about office rates. Well, there is an owner, there's a company that has attempted to purchase that property. They were the first ones that made the bid on that property, which was accepted by the current owner. I won't get into what's happened at probate court, which resulted in an order saying that they Mr. Amber could buy the property, but it is the desire of these people to possibly enforce their rights on this property and keep it as office. And here's who they are. Their company is right here on Big Beaver. They're called Resource Point. They're a national IT provider located right here. What they want to do on that parcel is put in an appropriate one-story office building. They want to move their business and put it there and be owner-operators, much like myself. They are here tonight, Rita Mehta and Ramesh Veluru, right here with their realtor who was involved in that transaction. They are here, and if you let them speak towards the end of this meeting, they'll tell you what they want to do. Ms. Mehta, her husband is a doctor in East Point. He will move here to Troy and occupy part of that building. This is what they want to do. We're waiting to see what happens, but we had a discussion. They have some rights that can be enforced. They have contractual rights on this. That is the appropriate use for that property. Please don't destroy our neighborhood through a wrong zoning to Big Beaver. Big Beaver, as is pointed out, is way far south. This is an isolated little island that's character has changed. We're not Clawson or Royal Oak, we're Troy, and I think we have a duty here to maintain this particular campus-like environment and not ruin it with a tall building. The sight line from our neighborhood really would be, I think, somewhat disastrous. And again, we are opposed to it. I wanted to hopefully afterwards, I know that some comments could be taken by some people that were not signed up to speak. Hopefully, Mr. Veluru, Ms. Mehta will have their opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jean Wang, Troy resident. Good evening.
My name is Jane Wang. I'm the long-term Troy resident for almost 20 years, and then I'm the Westwood Park resident for 14 years. Basically, I'm kind of opposed to this rezoning.
Thank you.
Okay. As my professor always said that a picture worth 1,000 words, so I would like to present two pictures. One is the map for rezoning. You can, like Mayor said that rezoning 1.2 acres, it doesn't make a whole lot, not make a lot, questioning at least. So I want to show you this picture. This blue ones actually is the area for currently as a zone as an office building, but it's going to be very, very little red here. Will be rezoning to the, big bigger building. Another one is the map for actually it's a site map for future Amber apartment building. Basically, I'm afraid it's going to turn the corner into a parking lot. As you can see, there is going to be like over almost 100, car parking lot. So another thing is, I'm considered this rezoning really not to go along with a master plan, because what's the idea of a master plan? Is Big Beaver going to be like a world-class status? I work in Troy area. I work from top of Troy, Big Beaver 888 building, and now it's a Columbia building. Every building I worked for is really, you can consider those world-class buildings. But building this Amber apartment just not go along with this idea being world-class. So that's the whole reason I'm concerning, especially with the traffic is going to bring in with those 100, some cars, not only 100 cars, but also some, because it's an apartment building, I'm sure there are a lot of, apartment hunters going to see the building as well. I mean, the area as well. So it's going to create a lot of traffic in the area. This area is so important, it's almost like a window of Troy. And so a lot of people, bring their kids to not only the community center and, the Aquatic Center, a Troy Library, every facilities they love to is located in this area. And if you create a lot of traffic here, definitely this is going to concern a lot of parents, like my friends. My husband bring, the petition sheet to the workplace, and then all of them sign.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Our next speaker is Ted Lavenway, Troy resident. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you got it right.
Okay, good
Thank you
evening.
very much.
Good evening.
Okay. Dear City of Troy member and council, my name is Ted Lavanway. I have lived in the city of Troy for 22 years. I'm a registered voter. I reside on Dublin Fair and Northwest Troy. I support the rezoning of the vacant property on Town Center Drive at Livernois to the Big Beaver District. This property has been dormant for a very long time, and being near the Troy Community Center would be an excellent location for a new apartment development. Young professionals with good educations and good jobs should be welcomed to our city of Troy. Those relocating from nearby cities and other states will shop in Troy and visit with local restaurants and businesses. This helps everyone who lives in this city. We should welcome all new development to our city, especially those near the Big Beaver corridor. Accordingly, I urge the Troy City Council to support this rezoning as I do. And I'd like to put this as part of the record.
If you could give it to the clerk, she'll pass it to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Craig Golden, business owner. Is that a Troy business owner?
Troy business owner. I'm the adjacent property, 3415 Livernois. I'm the dental office next door. And you're right, Jerry Amber's a wonderful person. He and I have spoken on a couple of different times, but that's not what this meeting's about. The meeting's about your rezoning a property which, as Mr. Mayor, you pointed out, is a little postage stamp compared to what it once was on the master plan. And I think the gentleman earlier on, the first guy that presented to us from the city, said, hey, does it fit? Does it fit the master plan? I would say no, not now. And does it fit the adjacent properties? I would say a 5-story building next to these 1-story buildings does not fit. As a next door neighbor, I am greatly concerned about a 5-story building towering over my property where you cannot see my building, the medical, I'm a dental office, the physical therapy office behind me, and also to the north of us is the eye center. All those 3 buildings were built, literally, I moved in 2009. They're not old buildings. Nobody's going to tear us down anytime soon to build up on the master plan of this BB area. So I would have to say that, in my opinion, rezoning is a bad idea. It's not about Amber Apartments. It's about what can go whether it's a 72-foot building or a 61-foot building. I think we need to leave it as office as what it was. And I'm greatly concerned if there is something like that, let's say it was an apartment building, that my property is going to see overflow of traffic down my parking lot. As you know, like you mentioned, there is an easement for the back lots. So let's say somebody doesn't want to wait to turn left. How about if they just go through and drive through my parking lot, run over a little old lady who's trying to go to physical therapy on their way to get to Amber Apartments? It's a true potential possibility that we can create some traffic issues coming down our adjacent property. If somebody has a party next door at the apartment and they have overflow of parking, they need parking, guess where they're going to go? My building's right next door. So I think I have a very valid concern, in which case I could have some problems, and I could have some too much traffic really eating up our parking lot, going down to get into the adjacent property. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Doctor. Our next speaker is Shaitan Rasky, Troy resident. Was that close? Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you all?
I'm good.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk. I'm a Troy resident. Hopefully, I can remain a Troy resident. We live in Westwood Park for the last since 1998. I believe, as you look at the master plan, I think the whole intent was to create something world-class around Big Beaver. And I have nothing against Amber Properties. However, as many of the residents pointed out, that's a little sliver of land along that area. First of all, it should be questionable why that area, that's not contiguous with Big Beaver. Why should that even be part of the master plan? But even if the whole office area was turned BB, it's not going to be turned, and just that little sliver. So it's going to be an eyesore. And secondly, it's not about the apartment. I mean, this person, whoever acquires that property, if it's zone BB, could put up something else, and that might not be harmonious with everything else around it. And we residents are, if indeed the apartment goes up with 60 units, we are concerned about the fallout on the value of our property. And it might cause a net loss in taxable values for Troy, for the city of Troy, for that subdivision, because that's a nice upscale subdivision that we have right just north of the property in question. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes those that have signed up to speak on this item. It is a public hearing item, so we will allow those in the audience, if they wish to speak on this item that did not sign up. Is there a gentleman in the back? Please come forward. Give us your name. Good evening.
My name is Sanjeev Bajwa. I live adjacent, very close to where the apartments are going to go up. I have a swimming pool in the back over there, and I'm very worried that if these apartments go up, people are going to overlook into my backyard and look into my swimming pool while my kids are swimming there. And I'm very concerned about that. And even if they put trees up there, I'm concerned the sunlight. I'm not going to get any sunlight in my swimming pool area. I've got a 4-year-old daughter that's got her bedroom right there on the first floor. I'm worried that who's going to be looking into her bedroom window at night. So I've got a lot of these concerns, and I'm very worried about this whole thing. I'm worried about the traffic build-up that's going to happen over there. And I implore you, please do not vote for this. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Sir. Mr. Peters? Good evening.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. I just got a couple questions on this. Would Mr. Amber consider talking to the people there, what they might accept, and also you have the impact on the community? Would it drive people out, or would it, in fact, enhance her? I'm sure you've considered that. So those would be my two questions on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward and give us your name, please.
I'm Michael Fahmy, the business owner of the OMPT, which is the physical therapy just next to the proposed area. And I'd like to thank Mr. Amber because I did talk to him on the phone, and he answered all my questions about the privacy, which is a big concern for us. But I do agree with my neighbor, Dr. Golden. We will have a problem with the parking lot. It's already hard for our patients, the seniors, to just pass the traffic light, stay in the central lane, and make a left turn to come to our practice. I can't imagine with 5-story building next to us with all the residents, how would the traffic play and how would the people go in and out? And if they have a party or someone have his friends over, they absolutely going to park in our area. The other thing too, in the beginning of the meeting when they were talking about the planning and how long that lot was vacant, that's not because no one is interested. That's because it was hard to talk to the owner of that lot to buy it. I'm one of the people that when we moved there in 2009, in 2010, we tried to get hold of him. We put an offer for him to buy the land, and it took 6 months to get back to the offer. Even the real estate guys were saying, don't go there. You're going to have a lot of legal challenge. The owner is 91 years old, and her son is the one who makes the calls, and so hard to get hold of him. So the lot was vacant because it's hard to get hold of the owner. not because no one is interested. As a matter of fact, a lot of doctors are interested in it because it's a lot of medical complex around on the north side and on the west side. So, thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to speak? Please come forward and give us your name, please.
My name is Rita Mehta, and I'm a resident of Troy for last 16 years, have been doing business, and we had, put an offer on the property. It was accepted, and just before the day, one day before, around at 3:30 p.m., we came to know that JSA Holdings have planned to go in front of the probate hearing and cancel Resource Point once our offer was accepted. We were planning to go ahead and make a medical billing. My husband is a doctor. He practices in East Point. We wanted to go ahead and bring him here. The billings around are all medical billings, and we would like to still, if we get a chance, we would still like to go forward with making a medical facility there. Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this item? Are there any further questions for the developer at this point? Okay. I will close the public hearing, return it to the table for a resolution. Councilman Pennington.
Well, I have to agree with the two Planning Commission members that voted against this project. One is, I agree that I just feel that it goes against the master plan and that it would be averse to the buildings and the homes in the surrounding area.
If we could, we need to get the resolution on the table, and then we'll have a discussion on the resolution, pro or con. If we could get somebody to move the Mayor or Councilman Fleming. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
To get the discussion, to do this properly, I will move the resolution E1 as printed. Support.
I'll second.
Moved by Councilman Fleming and supported by Councilman Pennington that we approve the resolution as printed. Now I will defer to Councilman Pennington for discussion.
Yeah, the two problems I have with it is I just feel that it goes against the master plan and that it would be averse to the buildings and the houses in the surrounding area. And then the non-conditional rezoning, I just think that would tie our hands if something were to go wrong with his project.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Huderich.
First, I just want to say I love the idea of lofts in Troy. Let me put that out there. But that's not what we're deciding tonight. We're looking at that section, which 5 years ago, a huge parcel there was zoned for Big Beaver. And I think many of us can look at that and wonder if that was even a good idea then. But let's assume it was. I think one of the things that's happened is a change in the conditions there. And we need to recognize that here at the table, that's the case as we weigh this against if this fits the master plan. It, to me, does not fit the master plan given the change in the conditions on that designated area. And it makes me uncomfortable with the idea. Now, fast forward to, let's assume this went in. We do have serious traffic conditions there. Those of us that live here in Troy and know this campus know that there are children that ride their bikes to the library, that there are people that walk. It is a walkable, bikeable, traveled area. And yes, the idea of apartments and townhomes and more people walking and biking is great, but is it going to be safe? I just think there's a welfare consideration here that, that's one of our greatest responsibilities as a council is to look at that. I have several other thoughts that are going through my head, but those are my two priority thoughts. And again, I respect the idea, I respect the intent, but just looking at zoning, if we didn't even know what you were sitting here talking about, this doesn't make sense to me to do this.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
With all decisions like this that affect not only the business community and residential, they're typically pretty gut-wrenching, and it's tough to know what to do. So generally, my process is to, put a list of pros and cons, and there's always a lot of each. In this particular situation, it does fit into the walkable Troy idea, because we've got lofts. They would go there. It would welcome young urban professionals. They could walk to the community center. Gate fees would be up at the community center. We have more people going to the library. This entire area would flourish with that kind of foot traffic. The downside, obviously, being the traffic. The zoning, do we want a 5-story building? We've talked about this with the hotels that we had on Stevenson. I think that presented a different set of issues because, large buildings could already be put there regardless of what the zoning was. So rezoning that wasn't fundamentally going to change the line of sight for anybody. That said, I don't know that this particular piece of property fits big buildings. So I'm still kind of on the fence. I'm not sure exactly what the right thing to do here is, but I like the walkable Troy aspect of it. Just a big building in that area just doesn't seem to fit. And if there are other options or potential options, certainly those could be pursued later on.
Councilman Fleming.
I appreciate everyone that's spoken tonight and spoken very sincerely. This is the first I've heard tonight that there may be other people interested in the property. This property's been sitting there for a long time. My gut says if we don't rezone and it stays office, it's going to sit vacant for an additional period of time. How long? Who knows? Because there's office buildings in places up and down Big Beaver and all over. We talk about walkable Troy, and we talk about attracting young people to Troy. We have the best schools in the country. Our students graduate, go to college, don't come back. We talk about transportation, walkable. I think we're going to have to bite the bullet at some point and start making affordable housing for people in Troy that can't afford to buy a $300,000 or $400,000 home, that being young people getting right out of school. Is this the ideal place for it? I don't know. It's a tough situation. But I know this, Troy has to become more flexible in the housing, has to offer more different housing to attract young people. This would be a great asset for the Big Beaver corridor. While it's not contiguous, doesn't actually touch. I think when we were looking at the master plan back in 2008, we looked at this, the Civic Center, everything that was in this particular area, and thought, boy, this would really be great for a Big Beaver type project. And this loft apartment fits a Big Beaver type project. So I think it could work here. Traffic is always going to be a concern. We live in Troy, we live in the suburbs, traffic's always going to be a concern, but not all 60 people are going to leave and come at the same time. I'm sure there are traffic studies. That's something to be dealt with down the road with the Planning Commission. I think the Planning Commission did their due diligence, got it right, not knowing what else can go there, just really forgetting whether it's an apartment complex or whatever. Could this be rezoned to make a better use of the property than sitting vacant the way it is today? Absolutely. I think it could fit. Now, we're going to be looking at this master plan the next few weeks again. But what we're hearing here tonight is we have a timetable. This company has a timetable to make a decision. I think February the 20th was a date that was out there. If we don't approve this tonight, we're going to miss that timetable, obviously. Whether they'll come back with another plan or not, I don't know. But we're looking to redevelop. All the easy properties in Troy are done. Every piece of property we're trying to develop now has its issues. There are no easy ones left. I mean, they're very difficult. They're gut-wrenching decisions, you know. So I think this could work there. I think the Planning Commission spent a lot of time on it, and it's not an easy decision, though. I agree. But thank you for everybody that spoke.
Councilman Campbell.
Mayor, thank you. I guess I would disagree with you a little bit. I'm not prepared to bite the bullet on this property. It's, I think it's, I don't know, however it got put into the Big Beaver corridor, you know, that was a lot of years ago, but it makes no sense at this point for that to be tied to Big Beaver. It doesn't fit what everything is around it. It is going to be a traffic problem, and I just don't see any value. I'd rather have the vacant land sit there for another 6 months or a year and put what should be on there, not what we can do today. Again, as one of the residents mentioned, to get some tax dollars, we got to move away from that stuff. We've done what we can for the city. Let's start making, I guess, some better decisions on some of these properties. You're right, we don't have very much property left, but let's start using it to the best of the ability and give the public something that's worthwhile. Not that that's not worthwhile, but I don't think it is for that property. So I have no intention of supporting that, no. Thank you.
Well, as Mayor Pro Tem Henderson said, these are very important issues to the community, and we're going to be dealing with these many, many more times because the only thing that is left is very small parcels. And I want to go on record to say that I completely support this concept in Troy. This is exactly what we're looking for. But the question for me is this the right location for that? And I think the Big Beaver Master Plan from 2008 is not something that this council would support at this time. And I think it's important to recognize that we are going to be revisiting that master plan very soon. And I voted for this in 2009, but I didn't vote for 1.2 BB in this district. And I would not have voted for that in 2009 when we did vote for this. I think this area should have a height limit, and I think when we revisit this in the master plan, if it does not get approved tonight, that's something that we need to talk about when we revisit the master plan. And because of what's happened in the past 5 years, I don't believe that this proposal is consistent with the master plan, and that's why I can't support it. I understand that the city needs these kind of concepts. I would encourage Mr. Amber to look for a parcel that I can support because I think this is important to our community. I just don't think that it's a good fit in this particular 1.2 acres. I have concerns not only about the 1.2, but there is residential across the street at Livernois. That's a concern to me. There are homes there currently. So I seriously believe that we're going to be revisiting this when we talk about the master plan, and I do believe that this probably would not have been approved in 2009 as a 1.2 acre parcel for BB. So I cannot support it today either. And I would like to speak about the petitions if I could. Petitions are extremely important to this council. They might not be enough when you're 150 feet or 200 feet to make this a majority, having to have a supermajority decision, but it's still very important to this council. We always encourage residents to sign petitions or send us emails, send us letters, come before us to speak. So believe me, your petitions were important to me and I think other members of the council, and we always encourage that. Anyone else wish to speak? Councilman Tietz?
Yeah, I'll just
be very brief. When we're presented with an opportunity to build something that would increase the walkability of the community, next to the community center, next to the library, we ask that we've tried to find a different parcel to build on. I just don't understand that. We're in a situation where we have a willing buyer and a willing seller willing to build something that's going to help our community in those ways, and disappointed that we can't seem to find a way to say yes. So I guess we will have a piece of land that sits vacant for 6 months, a year, 2 years, however long, until the council decides that it's going to approve of something that we talk about. We talk about trails, we talk about walkable community, but when it comes time to pass something that would execute on those things, or people say that it's important to them, it's a great place, but not this place and not this spot. And that's fine. It's not very often that I get a site plan or a sight line plan like this, and the work's already been done, where we can say, yeah, this can use tweaking or something, but it's laid out for us. And so I guess I'm just disappointed, because a lot of lip service is made to these sorts of ideas and these concepts of people riding bicycles and walking and so forth. But the times when we have something sitting in front of us in hand, or someone wants to help make that happen, we don't say, gosh, we would like to tweak something. We'd rather say, not this parcel, not this time. And so I guess we'll wait until we find that right time in which we can start this whole walkable community. But gosh, I don't know of a better location than this, where it'll help feed those things. And to the residents, I'm sympathetic to your concerns, certainly am, but I think there have been considerations made. So with that, I'll be voting yes, and I'd encourage other council members to do so as well.
Thank you. Any other? Councilwoman Huderick?
I can appreciate where the councilman's coming from on this. This is something I've wrestled with all weekend. But the point that I guess I was trying to make about the traffic and the walkability is, I heard from residents, aside from this neighborhood, trying to stay away from not in my backyard syndrome, quite frankly, and really keeping an open mind. I heard from residents that don't even live exactly by this area, who use this campus as a walkable, bikeable area. It already is. And I think the consideration on my part is, does this make it better and enhance that, or does it put what we have in place at risk? I think if that loft was up on Big Beaver, or the loft apartment idea actually on the Big Beaver corridor, then it's walkable back. But where it is has the potential, the very real, logical, pragmatic, common sense potential to inhibit the walkability that's already there for children coming from neighborhoods over on Waddles, all the way down Livernois. And I think those of us that kind of live over in this corner, we've lived that and know what gets put at risk. I didn't have one phone call. I didn't have 2 phone calls. I had 4 or 5, a number of emails that didn't go to everybody, people who know me and live. So to the councilman's point, yeah, I'm not giving lip service to walkability, bikeability, and trailability and using that campus. I'm looking at the best decision for maintaining what we have, and does this enhance it? That 1.2 acre, I don't think enhances it enough and puts it at risk. That's the trade-off I'm making in my mind.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
I tend to side with business in most circumstances. Not that I don't side with residents, because I'm a resident also, and I understand that not in my backyard situation, that all that has to weigh into the equation. But I spoke with somebody who's an official in the Clawson area just this afternoon, and this topic came up, and he mentioned the Amber apartments, and the outcry from the public that, that was a big mistake in the area. And as it turns out, that's been kind of a nice addition to the area. So even though the outcry was there, it turns out that it's a pretty good situation there. And I've driven past those, and they look pretty nice. Ramping up to my run for city council, I sat down and when you do these things, you try to get as many conversations going as you can so that you know how to handle running and speaking in public. And so this senior at Troy High School reached out to me and wanted to chat about, why I wanted to run for council. And he brought with him a drawing of this campus here, and his idea for the campus was exactly how this Amber Apartments kind of fits into this area. Make this the walkable area of Troy, and it certainly is, and I see how the Amber Apartments can fit into that. So again, this is a gut-wrenching decision to have to make, but I don't really see a downside other than the traffic situation, which, hopefully we can address that after the fact. But I really think that being able to provide people an opportunity to again, young urban professionals to move into an area and have such a nucleus of things that they can participate in, I don't see the downside to that.
Any other comments? The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Mayor Slater?
No.
Councilmember Campbell?
No.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
No.
Councilmember Pennington?
No.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Motion fails. I'm going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you all for coming this evening.
Wednesday?
Don't confuse saying, somehow, oh, my. It was just.
Doug.
Are the mics on?
When the guys I know, they say they
I'll say the same thing here.
Okay. Okay, we are back in session.
Reasonable?
We are back in session. Our next order of business is public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses, and I don't see that anyone has signed up this evening. Everyone left.
Something we said.
I think it's something you said.
Mr. Peters is here. Come up and talk.
Not yet, on the agenda.
This is for on the agenda. Okay. So our next, should be no city council or city administration response. There are no postponed items. So that will take us to regular business. Our first order of regular business is I-1A, which is a mayoral appointment. I will move the following appointment of nominated person to serve on boards and committee as indicated. For the Board of Review, I will appoint Eileen Turner for the term to expire 1/31/2017 for the Board of Review.
Support.
Moved by the chair and supported by Councilman Fleming that we appoint Eileen Turner for the term that expires 1/31/2017 for the Board of Review. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Councilmember Campbell.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington.
Yes.
Councilmember Teets.
Yes.
Mayor Slater.
Yes, motion passes. Congratulations to Ms. Turner. Next are appointments for city council appointments. I will defer to Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
Mayor, resolved that the Troy City Council hereby appoints the following nominated persons to serve on the boards and committees as indicated. For the Election Commission, David Anderson, term expires January 31st, 2015, and Timothy Dewan, term expiring January 31st, 2015. Support.
Did you want to do them all together?
Can we do them all together? Yeah. Also, the Liquor Advisory Committee, for a term expiring January 31st, 2017, Stan Godlewski, and also David Gorsica for the term expiring 1/31/2017. And Traffic Committee, Richard Kilmer, term expiring 1/31/2017, Al Petrulis, term expiring 1/31/2017, and Peter Ziegenfelder, January 31st, 2017.
So I support them all.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson, supported by Councilman Pennington, that we appoint those designated by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson for the committees as stated. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington.
Yes.
Councilmember Teets.
Yes.
Mayor Slater.
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell.
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations to those that were appointed. I-2 is board and committee nominations. There are none for the mayoral nominations, and I understand we will pass on the city council nominations this evening. There, I-3 is no request for a closed session this evening. Thank you. I-4, I see Ms. Russ standing, the library director. She will introduce I-4, the 2013/14 budget amendment number 1, library services. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. It's my pleasure to come before you tonight, but it's a little bit sad, too. One of our longtime library patrons, Mr. Mark Solomon, passed away and left the library an incredibly generous bequest of $25,000. And he did not indicate how he wanted it to be used, but he did indicate that he did want it to be used. When I got together with my staff to decide how we could maximize this generous donation and what we should do with it, we gave a lot of priority to patron requests, and we also wanted to emphasize the strategic planning priorities, specifically with technology. So I've outlined how we would like to use his donation, particularly in the areas of technology, adding more ebooks and ways to access ebooks for patrons. We'd like to start a collection of loanable e-readers. We would also like to, purchase some child-friendly furniture for our children's section because the bottom has literally dropped out of 10 of our chairs. So those are some of the highlights. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about those. The second portion of this budget amendment is we have the opportunity to take advantage of what's called an early adopter discount for a module for our Polaris computer system. Polaris is what we use to check books out, check books in, give library cards, and so forth. This early adopter discount saves the library about $8,000, or else I would be asking for this in our budget for next year. So I really wanted to take advantage of the discount if we could, hence my request for use of the fund balance. And what this module, it's called LEAP, and what it will allow us to do is basically take the library not only on the road, but it will allow us to meet people where they are in the library. So if you're browsing the stacks and you want to check out right there, you don't have to wait in line anymore. If you're looking for something and you don't even have a library card, well, you don't have to go back all the way to the front of the building and apply for a library card. We can do that for you where you are, which is really cool. And if you've been to the Nordstrom or the Apple store lately, you know that they're doing away with lines and they're providing service to people wherever in the store they happen to be. We really think that that's obviously not the wave of the future, it's here, and we want to get in on that. And it really will allow us to do a lot of outreach, to take the library out into the community and provide service to people where they are. So that's the overview of my request, but again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Russ? Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to move the resolution? Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
I'll move the resolution as printed.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson and supported by Councilwoman Huderick that we approve the resolution as printed. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teets?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations. Thank you for the tour this evening.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for coming. Come again.
Well, if we're invited, we come, as you saw.
Drop by. All copies of We Are Marshall.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business is I-5, the 2013-14 Budget Amendment Number 2, furlough termination, introduced by Tom Darling, the Director of Financial Services. Good evening, Tom.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you to talk to you tonight about Amendment Number 2. As you know, at the December 2nd regular council meeting, the council approved the termination of remaining furlough hours unanimously with an effective date of January 1st, 2014. As part of the amendment, you asked the management to come back with a budget amendment to support that action, which you have in front of you right now. As you can see, with that amendment, we're looking for a budget amendment for the general fund of around $294,500, and for the remaining other funds of $66,510, for a total budget amendment citywide of around $361,010.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Darling? I will move the resolution that the Troy City Council hereby approves the 2013-14 Budget Amendment Number 2, termination of furlough requirements as submitted, a copy of which shall be attached to the original minutes of this meeting. Moved by the chair and supported by Councilman Campbell that we approve I-5 as printed. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Anyone at the table wish to pull a consent item this evening? Councilman Pennington.
Mayor, I will move that we support the consent agenda, all the J items as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Pennington and supported by Councilman Fleming that we approve all consent agenda items as presented this evening. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion passes. Memorandums and future council agenda items. There are none submitted. K1 and K2, none submitted. Next is the public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses, and Mr. Peters, Troy resident. Good evening.
Evening, Mayor, Council, folks in Troy. I'll be brief. I just want to talk a little bit on the President's speech tomorrow night. I would just hope that, and also today I was reading about where these shutoffs, I'd hope that those would be restored. I hope that the benefits for the unemployed would be restored. And since we were talking about housing quite a lot, I hope that maybe we could expand public housing or affordable housing, or just look into it and maybe in a different way than we have in the past. And we should maybe, well, I guess I was going to talk about replacement costs when we, but that's probably another time. Okay, thank you. I'm all done.
Thank you. There are no council referrals this evening. Next is council comments. No comments? I do have one comment. Congratulations to former City Council member Maureen McGinnis on the birth of her daughter, Mackenzie, 8 pounds, 8 ounces, 21 inches and something, I think was, she says everybody's doing fine and looks forward to attending the next council meeting.
She bats left and throws right.
Pardon me?
She bats left and throws right.
Councilman Fleming.
Yeah, just want to acknowledge that report we got this week that Troy has now been designated the safest city in Michigan again. So congratulations to our police department and all our staff for all the hard work, and that's great to be back on top there again. So thank you so much.
Any other comments? Are there any comments regarding the reports that were submitted with the agenda this evening? Nope. I don't see that anyone signed up for public comment for items on or not on the agenda from members of the public outside of Troy. So there are no study items, no closed session. We are adjourned.